and warm welcome to our show E40 Talks, an ICT initiative which promises to get inspiring stories and brilliant speakers on board each episode. I am Shavinda Kaur, the brand head of the show. One single vulnerability is all an attacker needs. In today's digital data driven economy, when brands are molded with process automation, data protection is of paramount importance. Please welcome the first woman cyber investigator, Dr. Dhanya Menon. Hi, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's my
Great.
pleasure.
Absolutely. So before we start the conversation, I would like to, acquaint our listeners and viewers a little bit of Dr. Menon. She's a versatile personality and is also a president awardee. That's a brilliant and a commendable achievement. She has 17 years of experience in cyber laws and cyber security. And when I talk about cyber law and cyber security, I always feel that there's some male behind it. It's so brilliant to see a lady working on it. A mother of 20 years old, absolutely, she looks 20 years to me already, and a trained Indian classical dancer. So that's brilliant. I mean, kudos to all your achievement. So my first obvious question is, I read so much about your bio. What was that inspiration that you joined this kind of field, and what is that setting up Avenzo cyber security solution, and what all does it caters?
Yeah, basically, I didn't choose to come into this field. Like I've told many times in the media, I didn't choose to come into this field, and I call it my destiny because the profession actually chose me. I had no idea what this was all about. Attended a seminar, and then there was some exam that we had to give by the end of the seminar. And that's why I attended the seminar to actually, give me a plus point in the work that I was involved in the job that I was working for. And then suddenly, the entire thing shifted. My grandfather's elder brother, my godfather, senior advocate, Sri P.B. Menon from Delhi. He came to know about this and then he pushed me into this. He literally actually filled up the application form, took the TD and put me into this course and said, no, you have to study. And that was one point of time when my personal life was going through a lot of crisis, where I was separated from my husband. I had a small child. I had to resign I was almost on the verge of resigning my existing job. The business that my ex-husband was looking after was going through some doldrums and things like that. So a lot of issues happening in my personal life, and that is when this particular thing happened. So actually, I didn't have the guts to say no to my grandfather and say, no, I want something else. No, whatever he put me in, I said, okay, somebody trying to help me, let me just do whatever he wants. I just blindly trusted that he knows better than me. Or I would say, I didn't give it a thought at all. And it was just like, I just got into this and it just started happening one after the other. It was like taking every day at a time. I never had a focus. I never thought about what the future holds, what is the kind of job I might get, or what is this profession all about. I keep thanking God that the God didn't give me that opportunity to even think about. Because if it ever gave me that kind of a position where they thought about, gave me that option to think about what this career was all about, probably I would have been as intimidated as most of the people during those days, and I would have backed out because having a little child, having to run around with a livelihood, things would have been different. But then, thank God, I was not in a position to even think about it, and just things started happening. There was no looking back at it all. That's a fact of things.
Wonderful. I guess, sometimes challenges definitely throw a lot of issues, but when you come up, flying colors, it definitely leads you to a place and you definitely become inspiration for many. And I'm sure there must have been many challenges, but brilliant. You're doing amazing work. So today's show is definitely very interesting and informative. So I want to know, can you just tell me more about cyber crimes against individuals? Because we are so vulnerable to all of these things,
Cybercrime and individuals is the question. I think I missed
Yes.
the question. It's okay. See, basically, cyber crimes is any illegal activity where the cyberspace is involved, like, digital gadgets. So you're always talking about something related to machines. So when I started off my career also, I had no idea that this had any connect to any kind of a human being. So it was more about hard disks, mobile phones, laptops, and desktops and things like that, networks. And so it never gave me an idea that initially, the first few months, I never got that idea or the kind of feel that it was in any way connected with the daily life. But then suddenly, you start interacting with police people, you start interacting with the ground reality of facts where they bring in cases, real human cases in front of you, and they ask what happens. And that is when it really took me by shock, actually, to be very honest, where I found that, everything that I was dealing as machine till date actually impacts a life out there. That's when I started replacing every person who came in front of me with my own life. And then it took me some time, I must be honest, and I should confess it took me some time to get over it professionally also, maybe a year or two. I would definitely say 2 years before I could really get over that initial shock, where where I found that, the cases that came in front of me, the individuals who came in front of me, their issues should be looked into more on a professional angle, and not, I shouldn't take it more personally. Initially, everything used to affect me very personally. And today, there is no way any individual can say, I don't want to deal with cyberspace. No way. All of us are nose deep down and diving in the cyberspace. We have no choice. So we just have to understand, we are left with no option but to understand, learn, and learn to tide over this, or keep ourselves afloat in this particular ocean of cyberspace. So every issue that you look about today deals with cyberspace. You show me one case which doesn't have a cyber angle. It's rare these days. So it's not that cyber crimes have manifold increased. No, it is not that kind of a statistics that you can always portray. Cyber crimes have increased, but it is not that the crime rate has generally increased. No, the crime rate has shifted from the terrestrial platforms to the cyber crime. So when you're talking about theft, when you're talking about stalking, when you're talking about eve teasing, to murder, to terrorism, there is cyberspace involved. So all the crimes that we have been dealing with on the terrestrial platform till date, or maybe in our generation till we grew up, or till I was in college, where I started realizing the aspects of law, crime, and criminology, and all that. All those things that I used to even think about on the terrestrial platform today has been shifted to cyberspace. So it matters. It matters to every individual, every one of us. It affects.
That's what they say, that you have got to be very careful. When we put anything on social media, it is for the social media. Nothing that you can hide, from that.
I keep telling, wherever I go to take a class or to speak to people, I say, you can lie to your family, you can lie to your spouse, you can lie to anybody in the office, or probably your friends, but you can never today lie to Google Bhagwan.
Yeah. Google Bhagwan se dar ke raho types,
Exactly.
Very true. So, moving on with the conversation, again, one of the hot areas right now is tracking down cybercrime and cyber terrorism. So how is cyber harassment also a cybercrime?
See, if you can define harassment as a crime, then cyber harassment is also a crime. Now, see, why is cyber harassment being discussed so much more than any kind of a normal harassment that we have been talking about till date? Is because the impact of cyber crime, cyber harassment is much larger. Because if you are in the office and there's one person who keeps teasing you all the time, saying that, body shaming you all the time, it's just probably you and that person telling you, probably one or two people additional who listen to this, and then it becomes a hearsay information. That's all. But instead, just shift this onto the cyberspace. Say, I want to harass you. What do? I body shame you, or probably talk ill about you on the cyberspace. I just say that once on the cyberspace, and there are millions of people who look at it, see it. Probably people who know you, who do not know you, who know me, who do not know me, also get to see this information. And we are all prone to this judgment of the social judgment, whatever happens on the cyberspace. That is why cyber harassment becomes a much more graver issue than the terrestrial harassment that we have been going through. So the terminology of harassment has not changed. The definition of harassment has not changed. It is just that it has been transported from the normal terrestrial platform to the cyber platform, where the impact has manifold increased. Okay, now cyber harassment is again being discussed. One more factor is that more than the hearsay information or hearsay harassment that we talk about where there is no evidence, we're talking about a type of crime where the evidence is very strong. Even if I delete it, even if you delete it, it goes about, the evidence of any transaction that happens on the cyberspace is very, very solid, and it is there for life. So once on the cyberspace, it is forever. There's no deletion on the cyberspace, actually. There's no actual deletion on the cyberspace. So that is also another aspect of harassment, or the crime called harassment, because of which cyber harassment becomes much more which is the reason why cyber harassment has come into discussion much more.
So true, so true. So yeah, thanks for sharing that thoughts, because that's very important for the younger generation to understand, to use it very judicially, your activities on the net, so that you don't end up in to situation where it leads to a lot of disastrous decisions later that, we all dream of a digital India where cybersecurity becomes an integral part of our national security. So today, is there any robust cybercrime law existing?
Cyber law, actually, we are one of the first few countries to bring in this particular act called IT Act 2000. And we have seen a series of amendments after that also. Though we have been looking forward to some kind of a data protection law, which was due in 2016, 18, and 2020 also, but we are all hopeful that it will come anytime. So once that comes into place, I think we will have most of the loopholes plugged in too. But I would say, since we are the first few countries who have brought in this particular law called IT Act 2000 in place, we are much at par with other nations also. And if you look at it, the penalties mentioned in the IT Act is much larger than the penalties that we can talk about in the other acts and laws that we have been dealing with till IT Act came into place. So definitely, I would say it is more in place and effective. I would say that the law is quite effective. Probably implementation of that law is yet to be 100% done. Now, people like us, we see more misuse of the laws and the sections of the act than proper usage.
And
so
yes,
I think there needs to be a proper training sensitization.
That's what I feel, that everybody should be aware of their rights on the. They should be absolutely be acquainted what all the laws can be if you by unfortunately land up in any kind of trouble because of somebody else. So that's important, and enforcement is also important. That's how the law and order will be executed. Great. I keep reading these terms, phishing and palming, and what are all these about,
Actually, they're only ways and means to get your personal information. It's like, some jargons that you give for certain kind of different kind of, like, for example, we have frying, sorting, and cooking and all that, baking and all that. So it's just different kinds of terminologies that are given for different kinds of styles of getting some personal information from us. So phishing is basically where they send you links, they call you, they send you messages and try to get your personal information from the call, the message and all that, or try to get you to click on a link by sending you a mail or an SMS. Now, during COVID days also, we have found a lot of people who call up senior citizens and tell them that, your COVID certification needs to be attached with your Aadhaar card. It is not attached. So give me your OTP number, or probably your bank card is going to expire because you have not used it. So we have seen senior citizens, they've not been able to go to the ATM counters for the 3 months, and they really fall for it that, I've not been using the card for 2-3 months, so probably it's going to expire. So I need to keep the card active. So let me give them the OTP number, some kind of things like that, where they give out their PIN number, password, or OTP, and transactions like that. So that is what when you call what you call as fishing, where they try to throw a bait and then, see who hooks on it, kind of a thing. So that's phishing. And then there's something again called wishing also on this, where they send you wishes, greetings, and say this is personalized, open it, or you can send this greeting to 10 people, just enter your friend's name and their email ID or a phone number and the name. See, any valid email ID and a name together, a valid phone number and a name together is a data for marketing companies. So that way they are, trying to get a lot of data, valid and usable data. That is how they get the valid and usable data. So there is something called wishing. Now then farming is again where I open a fake site which looks like some other site. So I might have a site, say for example, dhanya.com, which actually should be looking like dhanya.in or something which I have. But people who search for Dhanya may not know which is the original site and which is the fake site. So they come to the fake site, they open it, they browse through the site, and they start saying, and if I say, how can I help you? There might be a chat box which says, how can I help you? And then they start putting in their queries. And at the end of the query, I'll say, okay, submit it with your phone number or your, Aadhaar card, or send us your Aadhaar card copy or your PAN card copy or something like that. So when information is sought that is called farming.
Okay, got it.
More information is collected by using a particular platform or a particular area like a website and things like that. So there are only terminologies which talks about certain types of collecting information. But basically it's like, every individual should be careful about what information they can pass it on to the outside world, how much of it they should maintain secretly, how much of it they properly manage, not give it out, and things like that. So it's a little bit conscious decision every individual has to take about the data protection and privacy with regard to my data, in the sense every one individual data that they hold.
That's a very important piece of information that you shared, because these are something that we are generally not aware, and I guess we should be very careful with every click what you do it on the net. Okay. So interestingly, I also read the word Dr. Dhanya Menon, So is it to do with your cybersecurity or it's something else,
No, it's not to do with it. It has got nothing to do with my cybersecurity. My doctorate is in dancing. Kuchipudi, actually. I'm a trained dancer in Mohiniyattam, Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi. But I personally love to perform Mohiniyattam and Kuchipudi. Bharatanatyam, I have students under me who train in all three forms of dancing, but my doctorate is in Kuchipudi.
That's why I said you're a versatile personality in the beginning, absolutely. So, and the President Award was it was based on what,
It was basically nominated by Ministry of Women and Child for the contribution for first of all, for being the first woman cybercrime investigator, for being something out of the norm, as they call it. But it was by destiny. I didn't choose to be the first woman. I had no idea I'm going to be the first woman when I started off this journey. But thank God, it came as a blessing in disguise for me. All these things, all the troubles and all the confusions that I went through. This was a blessing that I got. Plus, it was nominated because there were a lot of child-related issues that I worked with, about 400 schools across India, the issues that the children were facing through the schools, and how we dealt with it, how we try to prevent children from getting into this. We had by 2010, from 2004 onwards, I'm in this industry. But by 2010, there was a conscious selection, or the choice that I made was to start my own company and an NGO by the name of Avanzo. Basically, because I wanted to station myself in Thrissur. I didn't want to go and work somewhere, or else I would have had to shift to other locations in India at least. But I wanted to be located in Thrissur because of my family issues, because I was a single mother. My son was there. I was living jointly with my parents, and so that support system was here in Thrissur for me. And I basically wanted to, by then I realized there's a lot of things that probably the society is asking from me. There was something which I had to contribute towards the society, that I wanted to do it, a start off doing from Kerala at least. So that was a very conscious decision that I made in 2010 to start off my company and my NGO from Thrissur. And since then also we have been working with different schools. There have been workshops, seminars, there have been classes that we have been doing. There is a package called Cyber Awareness Program, CAP, that we work with the schools across India. So there are subscription modes, there are children who join, and all those things that we work on. And of course, the n number of cases that I have dealt with for the ministry, for the home department, for the, I mean, they're the dirtiest things that anybody even think about. So they're not very nice to discuss about. They're not very motivational also. I keep saying it's very interesting when people say you're an investigator, they look at you as if you're some kind of a celebrity, but my job is dirty.
That's beautiful. That's really nice. I'm so glad to hear somebody, you know, with the profession is also pursuing the passion of being a dancer. That's really nice. I've almost come to the end of the show, and I wish I could continue talking to you, Dr. Menon. One last question is quickly, if you can tell us some tips to prevent cyber crimes, you know.
I think the best tip is to be aware about the space called cyberspace. First of all, learn about it, know about it. It's like, you know, learn to drive before you take out a vehicle out onto the road. You learn the traffic rules, you learn what the roads are all about, and you learn how to drive. So these are the three things that we always do when we go onto the roads. So the same way we need to learn how to maneuver ourselves through this traffic called cyberspace. And that is what we need to learn. We need to learn what the gadget we are using, why we are using, ask ourselves questions as to how, what, why, and when we should be doing certain things. And if we do not have answers to all these things, or if the answers are as lame as because somebody else has done it, leave it, don't do it. So it cannot be like, you know, general things that I can say everybody follow these rules. No, it is very personalized. My use of the cyberspace is different from yours. So definitely it has to be customized. Everybody has to work on it. Don't think, I mean, there is a general question which everybody comes and asks me, why is government not doing anything? See, government starts banning of certain sites. I wouldn't agree to it, because those sites may be educational for me, or probably I'm using it for my research purpose. So it will be something which I am required, which I require, and it is my right for that information. I have the right to get that information. I have the right to that education on that platform. But if it is not pertaining to you, if you do not need it, don't go, don't do it, don't surf it. You shouldn't be using that information. So these kind of curtailment can work out only with minors, which should be enforced by all the stakeholders around the minors, like the teachers, the parents, the schools, and the governments. Definitely this curtailment can be worked out with the minors, but not with the adults, especially in a country like India. No, we will not take any kind of sanctions in a country like India. We live in a very, 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 free-minded, free-willed nation. So we will not take it. So that way we have to learn about this space. The second would be to learn to categorize and to follow some kind of a data hygiene. Understand that everything that we do on the cyberspace amounts to accumulating data. Data, it goes on and on and on. It gets added on after one piece after the other. And how do we categorize this data? Is it sensitive data? Is it official data? Is it personal data? Is it a financial data? Is it a social data? How much of it are we willing to allocate? How much of the data are we willing to allocate on each of these categories? And how do we ensure that category official do not fall into category social? Now, what is happening is that we somehow have a policy or a liking to the mixed vegetable kurma kind of a thing, where we have everything together on this particular gadget called the mobile phone that we have. We have official data, we have financial data, personal and social data, all put together onto the same gadget. And we just don't bother to segregate the data or securitize the data accordingly. So that we have to learn data hygiene, we have to learn, we have to practice. And every individual needs to follow this particular thing. And it is very, 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 very customized. It cannot be a general rule. See, my personal data, I may be willing to share some of my dancing pictures because I like dancing. I like people to know that I dance. I want people to come and join my classes, or probably I want people to call me or invite me over for a program. So I will publicize that data. But that doesn't mean I will start publicizing every time I eat something, I have my breakfast, I have an ice cream. No, this is what is happening. We do not know how to segregate or separate this kind of an information. Every time we go to a coffee shop, we have to click a picture and upload it to show the world that, we like chocolate drink or something like that. I mean, we have to definitely take this conscious decision.
Great. That's kind of an obsession that we see everybody doing. That's so wonderful. I mean, I guess I'll host another show from all the more details from you, on the cyber security. So thank you so much once again for being a part of this interesting Women's Special series, Choose to Challenge. Absolutely, you're up for the show, Choose to Challenge. So I can only tell to the viewer is nothing ever goes away once it is posted online. So stay vigilant, adapt and adopt cybersecurity measures. I wish you all the very best, Dr. Dhanya, and you're doing a absolutely wonderful job continuing inspiring people. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for hosting. Thank you.
Thank you. If you wish to share inspiring stories, please contact me at shavi@e4gtalks.com. I thank all the viewers. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, E4G Talks. Do not forget to put your reviews in the comment section. Today's episode was dedicated on the cybersecurity, and our guest was Dr. Dhanya Menon. Once again, thank you so much. For more interesting stories, please stay tuned. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Jai Hind.
E4G Talks is brought to you by ISECI, Indian Ex-Defence Service Employees Chamber of Commerce and Industries. Thanks to its vast veteran network and global and pan-India associates, ISECI can carry out various commerce facilitations and CSR projects across India and the world. Some of ISECI's core capability areas are Skill India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Digital India, any ex-serviceman welfare or job program, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan related projects, telemedicine and healthcare training and job scheme, Save Water scheme, defense industry SME, MSME cluster and hub development, maritime training and inland water training with job facilitation, Canada study, job and permanent residency opportunity, e-commerce, Andaman and Nicobar commerce opportunities. ISECI's global reach includes countries like Indonesia, Slovakia, Canada, Nepal, Singapore, Rwanda, USA, UK. Above all, it is ISECI's effort to create a veterans brand made by the veterans, for the veterans and made up of the veterans. Every Indian's support is invaluable in this journey. ISECI is a registered society for ex-servicemen's welfare and envisions that every veteran should be a part of India's economic growth story. It is the aim of ISECI to create an enabling commerce platform that will empower and synergize the veterans' talent pool. This is possible only with the support of entrepreneurs, businesses and consultants from civil society. All proceeds, if any, are utilized for the welfare of ex-servicemen and for public charity.